Oh, there it is. Yes. Hey, Jason, how are you, sir?
Feliz Navidad, Gregory.
Are you already in Christmas mode?
I am actually.
In Spanish Christmas mode?
I was listening to some Christmas music earlier with my wife and my two daughters. Oh, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we were having a good time.
I get into that too.
Yeah.
Like the first couple cold days of Michigan, and I'm like, all right,
man,
let's do this.
We had them last week too. By the way, man.
Yeah, like 2 days right in a row, it just went a 40-degree drop,
exactly.
And then
well, it was like
later.
95 the week before, and then 55. So yeah.
All right, so Christmas is on the schedule for you. I like it.
Love it.
I did actually go out and buy some Christmas candles.
Very nice. Very nice.
Am I allowed to do that as
Christmas? Christmas
hetero-reformed
candles.
male?
What is a Christmas candle
exactly?
Well, Christmas, kind of Christmas smelling, scented, you know, evergreen and pine and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, I just go with straight BO. Boom. Are there candles that smell?
Jeez.
That would actually be a cool smell.
Yeah, it would be.
No?
Well, listen, before we get off the rails here on our BO scented candles, is that what you just said?
That could be a great. That would be a great business.
No one wants to smell that.
I mean, I'm telling you, man. I used to have a manager in the music industry. He loved the smell of skunks.
Yeah, no, I know a few people like that.
So weird.
Yeah,
I can't stand that smell.
If they came up with a Lafayette Coney candle,
Coney. Really?
You know, in Detroit.
Yeah.
I'm a Lafayette.
You're a
Coney
Lafayette
guy.
Okay.
Yeah, you know the big war goes up there in Detroit on which one you side on. I would get a Lafayette Coney dog smelling candle. I think that'd be good. Yeah.
Man, I don't know about that.
But now that we have the important stuff out of the way. Oh man, I'm glad to hear you're doing good, man. It's good to be back in studio with you. And we have a special guest on today. He's been on the podcast before, which we love guys that we can bring back. We can talk about new and fresh stuff.
Yeah.
And he's a director. He's been in Hollywood for quite a while. He's directing a film that we're going to talk about and producing it, I believe. We're going to get into here shortly. But it's Mr. Joseph Granda. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Hello.
Didn't mean to interrupt your smell-a-thon there.
Do you have any certain smells that you're okay with? I mean, smell of tobacco, smell of bourbon.
Not that I want to mention on a family show here.
Smart man.
There you go.
Unlike us, to where we just bare our soul every week with our weird.
I love flowers. That's
who doesn't. You know,
I like the smell of leftist tears.
yeah, right.
He likes the smell of leftist tears.
You're on the right podcast.
Oh man. But we're gonna get into what.
But before we get started, I just want to say that my pronouns are winning and first place. and if anybody wants any medical information about me, they can see Dr. Joe Rogan about that.
Yeah, right. Yes, PhD.
That's great.
Dr. Joe Rogan and his pronouns are winning in first place. Hey, he said winning. It. Now you have to refer to him that way. That's the way it goes.
I'm okay with it.
That's the way it goes.
All right.
But we're gonna get into a little bit of what Joseph's been doing, some projects he's going on. Talk about pop culture a little bit since he's in that industry. But first, we're gonna do some newsy news. Yeah. And Joseph, if you want to jump in and comment too, we might throw it over to you. Feel free. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
News, the news, the newsy news, the news, the news, the news. We got some news. Oh yeah.
All right.
And we do.
Yes.
And now the news. A hamster has been trading cryptocurrencies in a cage rigged to automatically buy and sell tokens since June. And it's currently outperforming the S&P 500.
Oh, that is awesome.
Dude, this is hilarious. So they have a cage that's rigged. It's the wheel that he runs on. It picks the cryptocurrency.
Okay.
So whenever he stops, it'll stop, just say Bitcoin. It stops on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
He has two different tunnels that he can run through, either a sell or a buy. So if he runs through the sell one first, then he's shorting Bitcoin.
Okay.
And then if he runs through the buy, then but yeah, it's hilarious. So he's up 24% right now.
Wow.
I mean, he's crushing it.
He's doing better than my portfolio.
I know. Right.
I didn't know George Soros had pets.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so the hamster's name is Mr. Gox, Goxx.
Important to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want to check out his portfolio and see how he's doing. He's been doing this since June 12th. I'm pretty sure they're in Germany. But yeah,
wow.
that's just hilarious.
We need to send that to David Bonson.
Yeah, I know, right?
Is this
right.
the correct way to invest, sir?
Right.
Is it Hyperion?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, David would just be like, I don't day trade. I don't do that stuff, you know. But,
what do you think? Do you think you could outperform a hamster, Joseph?
Yes. In more ways than picking stocks.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Joseph might be an ape. He might be an AMC GME guy.
Oh, yeah.
GameStop.
Oh, the ape army?
Yeah.
I know all about those guys.
Man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That'd be a great documentary right there.
Absolutely.
Just throwing it out there.
What else we got?
Yeah, so here we go. So this is more of a serious one. The United States has a port problem. The California ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which together have a significant of all U.S. imports, are experiencing major shipping delays and cargo backlogs as businesses are trying to restock their inventories that took a hit during the pandemic. So, you know, things are happening like Costco is having limits on their paper towel purchases.
I saw that.
And now artificial Christmas trees, the prices have jumped because people can't get Christmas trees.
What communist has an artificial Christmas tree?
I have no idea. Right? Yeah. Who would buy an artificial Christmas tree?
I'm kidding. I actually have one.
It's time for everybody to move to the bidet.
Yeah.
You know, you can get a really inexpensive Japanese one off Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. We have it at my house. We have them here.
I was gonna say, well, and you're in Colorado, right?
I am in Colorado.
So you can go out and get one of the most magnificent looking trees known to man right there in Colorado.
Were we talking about trees or bidets?
I know, right?
It all makes paper in the end.
He said, yeah, it's all paper.
That's true.
That's so great. Yeah. But yeah, that's the two newsy news that I had.
So what's going on with the shipping stoppage? There's just like, I read there's like just ships out there.
Yeah. Supposedly
they're around and they can't get into dock.
50, 60 cargo ships. And then along with that, they don't have people in the ports and semi-truck drivers to take the shipments because a lot of people don't want to work right now.
Right. People are being paid not to work.
Yeah. So that's the pandemic as well.
So I know we kind of saw that a little bit here in Michigan, not as bad as some other places because 3/4 of all land imports come from the Ambassador Bridge, which is about 25 miles from us. So we did see some stuff get fulfilled quicker than other states. But Joseph, are you seeing that out in Colorado right now? Are you seeing like shortages of stuff again or no?
No, not at all. No. I live in Boulder County. I live in one of the most liberal areas. It's lots of fun to be the contrarian to my neighbors who I love. No, we don't have no problem. We have no problem out here. But I tell you what, if there ever really was a problem, my brother, who's was in special forces, he says it's called 72 hours to animal. And if you knew that Walmart across the street was empty and no more deliveries were coming, he said it's 72 hours before your average person turns into an animal.
Yeah, no, I've talked to my father about this too, who's had some experience in that, and he that's how he plans. He just goes,
gotcha.
It won't take, and then he's even in a very rural area, and he said it would take less than 10 days for them to even kind of come out to the more rural areas to kind of pillage and see what people have.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Right.
You can flip that.
Those are all Hollywood's dreams. That's all the movies they make. End of the world, destruction, zombies.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's just because we're not self-reliant on anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, my brother explained it best one time to his wife when she said, "Do you really have to go hunting this year again?" And he said, "Look at honey, 150 years ago, I would have to go out and find our meat, cure it, and then provide for the family." He goes, "Now I just walk down the aisle and I go, oh, I want some fish. I want some beef.
Right.
I want some pork. And he goes, it's in my DNA. I have to go hunting. And I was like, that's the most impassioned plea
Yeah,
to
right.
go hunting I'd ever heard. I was very impressed.
Man.
But he's making a good point. You know, we just go to a store, pick out what we want. And
so convenient.
We don't know how to grow, how to cure, how to hunt, how to anything.
How to make Doritos.
No, people should at the least learn how to go camping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because I own some land far away from here that we have a little spot. So
nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, same here. We got any more news then?
That is it.
All right. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
I think, Jason, you wanted to ask him about Ride Sally Ride, right?
Yeah. So really, we want everyone that wasn't able to hear the first episode to get to know you first off.
Right.
Because we only had a short amount of time with you and it was awesome. And anybody that wants to go check that out, please do.
Yeah, that was with Doug too.
That was with Doug Wilson.
Doug Wilson, yep.
Yes, that was a great episode. But yeah, if you could just introduce yourself to our audience, and then also, just give us an update on Ride Sally Ride. Would really like to know what's going on with that movie.
So I've been in the movie business in the entertainment business for 30 years. I started out as an actor on Broadway and got a break in film, and I worked pretty regularly through the 90s as a writer and an actor, and I got to the point where people would offer me work, and I once got offered a job to play a rapist in a movie, and it was a big movie. It's a big movie. It'll be really good for your career. And I thought, well, what's my career that's good for it? And this is before I even came to Christ. So my first thought was, well, what's it pay? And then I thought, well, I'm not sure I want to do that. And they dropped me. And ultimately I left Los Angeles. It was an uncomfortable. I didn't feel right in it. Moved to Colorado, had some other businesses and continued to write. I found Christ. I got baptized. I gave my life to Christ, and everything that came at me moved me back into the film industry with a different approach. A couple of them being, I feel like I had a different perspective on filmmaking because more of my life has been spent as a secular person.
Okay.
So I was able to sort of understand the business and how those people in that operate and work with them. And from that, I had a movie that came out earlier this year. It's a nice family movie that I was hired to write and direct called The Healing Garden. And, but I wanted to do something that pushed back on the culture. And I was working on some things, and that's when I read Doug's book. I've read a couple of his books. I always tell people that my wife and we got quarantined and came out Calvinist, and and that's when I read his book. And then I read it again, and I just thought, you know what, this is the movie I want to make. Who knows? I wrote him. I got in contact with him. I did a big pitch with him and his crew, and then I went up there and I broke bread. They wanted to make sure I wasn't, crazy.
Yeah.
Jury's still out on that.
Well, what's funny is so obviously I got the gig and I've written the script and they're all very pleased with it. The one note that Doug gave me was, and he doesn't give a lot of notes. It was, I feel like you're holding back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't hold back anymore. Because one of the things about pushing back on the culture is the only thing that leftist culture can't handle is ridicule and scorn.
Yeah.
Especially if it's done in a humorous way, sort of like, this is nothing different than what you do. I'm just, turning it back on you. And so that's where we're at right now. We have a script. I've been talking to lots of different actors. I've had some commit. I've had a very interesting process. If you don't know what the story's about, it's about a young Christian kid who has a neighbor that moves in and presents his wife, which is a sex bot, as he presents this sex bot as his wife. And at one point in the book and in the film, the neighbor tempts this young Christian man. He literally tempts him with this doll by getting him to try and look in on it, make sure it's okay. And the kid takes the doll and he crushes it in a trash compactor and the district attorney charges him with first-degree murder. So from there, it evolves into this idea of what is personhood, and more importantly, that if we treat ideas and things as if they are real women, we will ultimately treat real women as if they are things. Yeah. And when I say ideas, I say things like Jenner, who we're all supposed to have the same reverence that I hold my wife to, and I won't do that. Hey, it's America. If that's what you want to cut yourself up as, go for it. But you can't force me into that line of the culture. And in the midst of all this craziness in the story is a real wholesome love story between a young man who's not afraid of his masculinity and a young woman who discovers the same power in her true femininity.
Mm-hmm. And so how is that going? Because I have seen some posts of yours talking about working with actors, looking for actors, kind of you update us on the process periodically on social media. How is that going right now? Like what part of and excuse me, because I don't know the professional terms, production, post-production, scouting, whatever. Where are you at in the film and what's going on?
Right now, it's sort of called what we're going to call this development.
Okay.
So I've given it to lots of actors, and I've gotten great response. I gave it to some fairly well-known producers I've known for a long time. One of them said, "Don't even tell anybody I read this."
Wow.
I'll get thrown out of this town. Yeah. So here's what's really interesting is a couple things about this movie is that it's the only movie I believe that has a upfront Reformed theology and faith running through it. It speaks it. And it's not afraid also to be controversial and to be edgy and, to turn over some tables and whip some people.
Right.
I'm not offering doves. And the biggest pushback I've gotten is from guess who?
Who's that?
Christians.
Yeah, I was just going to say Christians.
So I found these two young men and they both read it. And one of them he just thought, well, I can't do this. And I handle myself professionally as much as I'd like to say other things. But the other one wrote me back and he said, it's very interesting. This is an early 20-something young actor. I'm sure he's a fine Christian young man. But in his reply, he said, I have a lot of gay and woke friends, and I feel like participating in this might hinder my opportunity to bringing them to the heart of Jesus. And I'm not comfortable with the politics. I said, okay, great. Best of luck to you.
Yeah.
And all the other things Hollywood's going to try and get you to do to make a living. Right. But my question would have been is, if most of your friends are gay and woke, which of those two are you leaning towards? Because we're all circumstances of our friends. I mean, I didn't say that to him because this is a business, but it was a very interesting that they turned it down. Now, the secular people that read it, most of them are center left, and some of these people I've known for many years, they got no problem with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and interesting enough is that I'm like my last film. The other thing too about knowing the culture from that perspective is that I'm not interested in just hiring Christians. I'm hiring the best people possible for the job.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of the faith of the people that were in my last film, but what I reminded my producer is that I don't know where they're at, but all of these people here read the script, and whether they like it or not, they're glorifying the word of God here today. And maybe some of them will be awoken by it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. What do you think that is? I mean, and I'm asking both of you guys, like, because that makes total sense that you would have more pushback from the Christian community saying, hey, we don't want to offend. We don't want to represent anything. I'll tell you what, if you could actually make this movie from a non-reform, non-Christian bent. And I think you're right, Joseph. I think Hollywood would jump right on board with it and go, man, this would be great movie for the case law, for the drama, for all the things that it entails. But yet as Christians, we say, oh, I don't know. I mean, is it because we just preach the wishy-washy, don't hurt anyone's feelings, Jesus? Or
Yes, it's because listen, I don't want to criticize my fellow Christians, but let me just speak in the realm of entertainment and film.
Yes.
Is that they are more concerned with being peacekeepers than peacemakers.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus didn't come here to participate. He came to take over. And if we don't have that same approach coming into the culture, whether that's painting or movies or music or whatever, if we don't come into the culture to take over, then what's the point? Listen, I'm marching down a path right now that more likely than not, I will never see the fruits of it in my lifetime. But I tell you what, I have a 9-year-old daughter that maybe she will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the culture is upstream from politics. The reason we are where we are at in this country is because the culture has been taken over since the 1960s in every way imaginable. Yeah. That's why we're at where we're at. So that's one of the things that, I have some big meetings coming up with influential people that can help fund this. And my pitch to them is stop giving money to politicians and start investing in the culture, because the culture is upstream from politics and Christ is upstream from the culture. And unless you start streaming Christ in an imaginative way, in a tough way, in a loving way, in an unafraid way that wants to make peace, you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to continue down this path where who knows where it ends up next.
No.
Brothers marrying sisters and whatnot.
Yeah. I was reading a post earlier. I love catching Gary DeMar on other timelines where he's talking about certain eschatological issues and so many issues. I mean, Gary could talk about anything, but he was just talking about how, well, actually somebody had said that the culture is just getting worse and worse and that the world is just getting worse and worse and worse. And Gary was just like, they're imploding on themselves though. I mean, the culture of death is, I mean, it's not going to prevail,
Yeah. Like, well, cannibals ultimately eat each other.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, when you talk about transgender marriages, I mean, they can't have babies. I mean, and there's so many different things that are going to happen in this culture that, the gates of hell will not prevail, like we're going to storm those gates. And
there's not a subject in today's culture that is not addressed in this film and in the book. It's just, there's not a, I mean, if people want spiritual fulfillment, they should go to church and read scripture. Don't look to movies. Mm-hmm. Let's entertain Christians. It doesn't have to be a sermon. You should walk out of there or get up from your couch and it should make you think. And don't be so afraid to be offended by your own kind, by your own group.
Yeah.
You have to push back.
I wanted to touch on something you said there too, how you said movies drive the, entertainment drives the culture, which it does. And, I've never met too many people that have said to me, when I was younger, I watched this stump speech by this politician. And when they passed this law, it changed my life. And I had an eye-opening experience. I have met a lot of people who have had a movie or a documentary or a song or something from the arts deeply affect them for the rest of their life. Right.
Right.
And politicians listen to culture. Right. It wasn't until the culture shifted on certain social issues that the politicians then fell in line and said, okay, this is how I get elected because the culture. So I think the culture wars is what's important, like you're saying. And, you don't have to be overtly preaching a sermon in a movie. Make me think when I come into a movie theater or when I stream you. Like, I want to sit down, watch a movie, and then go, wow, the philosophical points on that, or like the things that's making me roll around in my head and go, could that happen? And if it does, how would I defend it? How would I do this? And that? And that's the kind of movie you're making right now. And I think that's the kind of movie believers need to make more of.
That's what we need.
Not believers, but even from the secular realm of, if they made a movie that spoke to those type of big questions and answers,
Well, and there's a recent example about how Abby Johnson in her book Unplanned, that went on she worked at an abortion clinic that went on to become a big hit movie, and that's a really good example of popular culture affecting legislation with things like the Texas law.
Right.
I mean, I guarantee you that has to do with it, even if it's just bit by bit. It has to be a little bit by little bit.
Well, let's shift gears here really quick, because I know we don't have you for too much longer. So I think you wrote an article. Jason, didn't you say you were?
Yeah, he did. He wrote a great article on the new Kanye West.
On the Kanye West
album.
We're talking movies and music here.
Yep.
And he came out with a new album, Donda. I purchased it. I've got about halfway through it. There's some good stuff on there, I think. But what are your thoughts on that? Can you give us a little, I don't know, Reader's Digest version of the article you wrote on it and your thoughts on his new?
Yeah, Kanye West is a really good example of how Christians miss the point. When he came out with his first record, they were like, everybody was skeptical. Mm-hmm. Is this for real? This and that. Oh, he went to Joel Osteen. Hey, he went everywhere that people would hear him.
Yeah.
We need to support those people and trust them by the fruits of their labor. And there's his second album is really the work of an artist. It's all over the place in some places. Mm-hmm. But he's a guy who puts it out there. There's no foul language on it, which was surprising to me. And then the Christians in the world pick out like, oh, well, he's got Jay-Z on there and Lil so-and-so. And I thought, oh, like what? Like having dinner with prostitutes and tax collectors? Now, I'm not comparing him to Christ, right. But if there is more power in Kanye inviting those people into his soundstage and doing a song with him, than not having in there, because whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
So God is using somebody like Kanye. Kanye is if Bible stories were being written today, is a deeply flawed man on many, many levels. And you just look at, especially in the Old Testament, God used all kinds of flawed people to glorify his name and move things forward. Right. We've got to support these people and nurture them and love them, because we need them, like I said, to plant these fruits to change the culture going forward in the future.
Yeah, that Kanye's first album, I mean, it was amazing. I really think it's one of the best Christian albums ever made, honestly. But it was just such a from the heart type lyrical, genius, like, I mean, it was just great. I mean, I really liked that album and just what it was saying, like he was really putting his heart out there. And just, what he was walking through as he, became a Christian during that period. And then, this new album, I mean, it's just showing his growth. But I mean, it's just amazing to see, exactly like you just said, Joseph. I mean, to see this guy that you've seen on the tabloids, in the tabloids, and all these different things that he's done, that's just been crazy.
I think
it's like he's just, he's a believer.
I think his first album, Jesus is King, was Kanye at church. And I think Donda, along with being a homage to his mother, is Kanye talking about God and the gospel out in the world, out on the streets.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between the two that I saw.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't even really like, and we've talked about it before, I don't even really like the label of Christian music or Christian this or Christian, when you put that adjective, in front of, right? Like,
right.
We've quoted it before, like A.B. Wilson was like, does the devil own the arts? Does he own the chords? Does he own the bass? Because we'll go down to hell and plunder him for the fifth and the seventh and the suspended and everything else, because it was meant for us to glorify God, right? And I'm paraphrasing that, but I love that because, you have a whole bulk of Christians, and I grew up in the 80s, 90s, listening to contemporary Christian music. It was horrible. It was not great stuff. Like the production quality wasn't that great. And it was all just copying the secular culture. Like, no offense to any of these guys, like a DC Talk album was just whatever rap album was out that year, but just Christian without cursing, right? And you had a whole group of people kind of grow up, and I'm generalizing. They obviously had some great songs and were talented artists in their own right. But you had a whole generation of Christians growing up going, oh, it's just the quality isn't the same, and it's this and it's that. And then when someone like Kanye, who is going through a sanctification process. Okay. And let's remember, do we have 500 million eyes around the globe looking at us when we're going through it, when we first were saved and going through a sanctification process? No.
Fame is the worst.
You know what I mean? And so that's one. But two, so then you have a guy working it out, trying to make an album. The things that he says truly is, and someone who self-admittedly has mental illness issues, and then trying to work it out. And then you got a whole group of Christians going, yeah, but is he really a Christian?
Right. Exactly.
It's like, what do we want as a Christian community? I don't want to make this episode about bagging on other Christians, but it's like, come on, guys.
Well, it tends to be the complaint department that, like, you know, of Christianity. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, well, you just said the word experience. You're a Gnostic. And it's like, no, I mean, you know, it starts getting picked apart, and it's like, dude, Kanye is just, and I mean, you know, we're not putting Kanye on a pedestal. We're just saying like, look, like he was just putting his new, his heart that was made into flesh, you know, like he was changed, and you could see it and you could hear it, and it was just awesome, you know? So,
yeah.
Very cool.
And there's others out there too.
Yeah. So when something like this happens, like a Kanye West album, or yourself making a movie on a very, very, I don't want to say sticky, but it's still a controversial issue to a lot of people in the world.
It's
provocative. Thank you. Are we trying to, do we run the risk of mimicking the culture instead of creating it? Or are we still trying to create it and not mimic it at all? Or are we okay with mimicking it as long as we know what the end game is? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's pretty easy these days to not mimic the culture, because I'm just confounded at times how the F word is just so overused and thrown around in everything from reality TV to, and what that is lazy writing and lazy producing. So if you're mimicking the culture, trying to mimic the culture, then I think you're aiming to please the culture at large. Now, I don't know the verse offhand, but it's something Paul's saying about gaze upon things that are beautiful, and so when I talk to other Christian filmmakers or artists, I remind them, you don't have to make a movie that preaches. You don't have to make a movie that talks about Jesus. Just make something beautiful. Put something beautiful into the world. If you want to have the family say a prayer around the table at one point or something, that's great. But if you want to encourage and infect the culture, then just make beautiful things.
Yeah.
You know, or make things that make people think, or say to them, no, I'm not going to do that. And try and do it with love. But then you also, if you really want to push back, the best way is through ridicule and scorn with satire. And that's what Ride, Sally, Ride is all about.
Yeah. And I've kind of had, I don't know. I kind of have been looking for that void to be filled by believers in comedy, sarcasm, and movies. I feel like we don't have enough of that kind of in our camp, right? To have that kind of the comedic voice or the sarcastic voice, or like you were saying. And I think this movie will accomplish that. But I'm so glad you're doing it. Jay, what do you think?
I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're really excited for that to come out. I can't wait to see it.
We're planning on we're hoping to shoot it in the spring, and Doug has a great book called Rules for Reformers, and it's all about taking what the culture does and turning it back on them. So our goal is to get all the finances by the end of this year, and shoot it in the early spring, and release it with a campaign during the midterms. And say, listen, this is where we're going. You know, without getting into the deepness of politics or parties or whatnot. First off, the parties are nonsense. They all say this and that in front of the camera, and then they laugh their ass off at each other while having Caesar salad and martinis at the 21 Club in DC. You know, sure. I know some of these people. They'll tell you that. Yeah. You know, and so to play their game and turn it right back on them, and have a big release just before the midterms, and just have a good chuckle.
Yeah.
And if people aren't picketing my home when this comes out, then I've done something wrong.
That's the goal, huh? Oh, man.
I live in Boulder.
I love it.
So as we wrap this up here, Joseph, can you throw out your social media, where you're at, where people can see the work you're doing? Anything you want to plug to the listeners?
Yeah. The best way to find out about me is at josephgranda.com. So that's Joseph Granda. That's grand with an A at the end, .com. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram and whatever that new one is, Getter.
Right.
I don't know. I'm mostly on Facebook. My sarcasm can be found there. So, the other thing I would say, if there are people out there that are hearing this that are Christians that are blessed or are of means, and they want to help push this forward, I would love the chance to talk to them and go over my pitch deck to help make this movie and help them come producers in it and fight the culture.
Awesome. That's such good stuff. I'm glad we have guys like you, guys like Doug out there fighting the culture wars, making content, streaming things, creating art that needs to be made.
Yeah.
It was established and created to bring glory to him and for our enjoyment.
Right.
That's what the Bible says about the arts. And I firmly believe that. Like you said, not everything has to be a sermon in a 90-minute film. In fact, I sometimes believe that you can be much more effective by asking big questions and then kind of stepping back.
Yeah.
And we're so glad that you're doing that.
Yeah. And Calvin wrote all about the arts.
Yeah, absolutely.
He wrote loads about the arts, and he said, "Go and do it. Get involved."
Right.
Absolutely. Well, you're definitely involved, Joseph. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joseph, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode. We appreciate all that you do out there, from sending us messages, commenting on our Facebook discussion groups. Make sure you go leave us a good 5-star review if you listen to us through Apple or
I can only leave so many.
me and Jason have met our limit for giving ourselves 5 stars on Apple. We can only do this so many times, but we do appreciate it. You guys know where you can find us. And Joseph, we appreciate you coming on. We'll make sure we link all this up too when it goes live so people can find you easily. As always, guys, God bless. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Dead Men Walking Podcast for full video podcast episodes and clips, or email us at deadmenwalkingpodcast@gmail.com.